erindi skipulagt af samtöku 78. Þorbjörg og Edda ætla vera með það og títill erindis Úlfur í sauðagæru. Þegar öfgaíhald klæðist feminísma. Ég held að við höfum 45 mínútur, það ekki? Það 45 mínútur erindi þannig að það erindi verður. Þú gjörðu svo vel. Og svo gefst tími fyrir nokkrar spurningar umræðu. En eins og ég sagði, það svona Q&A hornið í salnum fyrir, ef það verður áhugi að ræða þetta áfram, bara endilega höldum áfram þar. Gjörðu svo vel.
Hvernig virkar þetta? Gengur þetta vel þegar við stöndum svona? Mjög gott. Svona. Ok, eru öll komin inn sem ætla að vera inni? Ok, frábært. Komið sæl öll virkilega gaman að sjá ykkur. Ég heiti Þorbjörg Þorvaldsdóttir og samskipta- og kynningarstjóri á samtökunum 78.
Og ég heiti Edda Sigurðardóttir, ég fræðslustýra samtökunum 78.
Og við erum hérna með erindið Úlfur í sauðagæru þegar öfgaíhald klæðist feminísma. Og ef ekki bara hefja leik hér.
Já, við ætlum að byrja því að draga hérna eins athygli að þessari forsetatilskipun Donald Trump sem var hvað með þeim fyrstu, kom fram hérna í janúar.
Já, strax 20. janúar.
Já, þar stóð frá með deginum í dag verður það opinber afstaða Bandaríkjastjórnar að kynin séu aðeins 2 karlar og konur. Og þar var gefið út að ríkisstjórnin ætti að nota sex í stað kyngerfis eða gender og fjarlægja allar yfirlýsingarstefnur og annað sem heldur lofti kynja og hugmyndafræði eins og þar var kallað. Þessi tilskipun algjör höfnun á tilvist trans og intersex fólks en hins vegar sett fram eins og það sé verið að verja konur fyrir einhverja hættulegri kynja og hugmyndafræði eins og þetta stendur Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism.
Akkurat, og vill svo til að samtökin 78 eru líklegast Gender Ideology Extremists samkvæmt þeirri skilgreiningu. En við, já, og þarna kannski líka, við hæfi að nefna að þau líta náttúrulega svo á að kynin séu bara 2, en líka þau séu algjörlega óbreytanleg og gera engan greinamun á, líffræðilegum einkennum og svo kynvitund og öðru slíku.
Og kannski það sem ýmsir að benda á að í þessari tilskipun talað kyn við getnað, en það víst, já, það dálítið erfitt, sko. Já,
það ákvarðað á ákveðnum tímapunkti eitthvað aðeins seinna.
Aðeins seinna, sko, þannig að það, já, einmitt.
Ok.
Svo sjáum við líka, það var núna hvað í apríl, 16. apríl, held það. Þá verður hæstaréttardómur í Bretlandi, það sem kemur fram, það einróma ákvörðun þessa dómstóls að hugtakið kona og kyn í jafnréttislögum frá 2010 vísi til líffræðilegra konu og líffræðilegs kyns. Þetta dómur í máli sem að samtökin For Women Scotland höfðu gegn Skotska ríkinu. Þau eru andstæðingar transfólks og þetta lokaniðurstaðan í þessu máli. Og nú man ég hvað hann heitir, það henni í notes sem ég sé ekki. Framkvæmdastjóri eða forstöðukona For Women Scotland, hún sagði að þetta þýðir að rými eingöngu ætla konum sé nákvæmlega það, aðeins konur engi kallar ekki einsunni þó þeir hafi vottorð kynleiðréttingu. Og þarna með þessum dómi og þessari túlkun að þessari niðurstöðu þá verða klósettmál mjög flókin fyrir transkonur og intersex konur. Og meðal þeirra sem fögnuðu þessum úrskurði var hún J.K. Rowling sem deildi þessari góðu mynd af sér með vindil og drykk og sagði I love it when a plan comes together.
Akkurat. Og það sem mér finnst svolítið áhugavert í þessu samhengi að fyrir 10 árum síðan, árið 2015, það voru mikið í umræðinni, sérstaklega í Bandaríkjunum og ákveðnum ríkjum Bandaríkjanna, svona svokölluð salernisfrumvörp eða svona bathroom bills. Veit ég hvort þið muni eftir þeirri umræðu. Það sem var einmitt verið að banna transkrökkum að nota kynjuklósett og svo framvegis í skólanum hjá sér og það voru svona áberandi mál. Og þegar eitt slíkt frumvarp fór í gegn, þá í einhverju ríki Bandaríkjanna, nú man ég þetta ekki alveg þá gáfu bresk stjórnvöld út ferðaleiðbeiningar eða ferðaviðvörun til hinsegin fólks til þessa ríkis. Það eru 10 ár síðan það var og núna eru sem sagt í raun og veru sambærilegar reglur komnar í gildi í Bretlandi. Og túlkanir bæði mannréttindastofnunar Bretlands og fleiri eru á þá leið. Þannig að það sem að sérstaklega transfólk að sjálfsögðu, það hefur náttúrulega áhrif á okkur öll, stendur frammi fyrir til dæmis að það mun ákvarðast af kyni, ekki við getnað, held ég gangi ekki svo langt, heldur bara kyni útliti við fæðingu sem að þýðir raun og veru bara þegar ljósmóðir eða læknir kíkir á kynfæri barns. Það mun ákvarða til dæmis hver leitar á þér ef að lögregla þarf að leita á viðkomandi. Þannig að þá verður þetta þannig að transkonur að það verður leita á þeim til dæmis á köllum.
Mér finnst líka kannski alltaf svona hafa það á bak við eyrað að sá hæstaréttardómari sem að þurfti að kveða upp þennan dóm, hann tók það sérstaklega fram að engir hópar ættu að fagna þessu sérstaklega, þannig að ég held að dómnum hafi ekki þótt þetta sérstaklega ánægjuleg niðurstaða þó þeir ekki getur komist að neinni annarri. En
það kemur í ljós hvernig þetta verður.
Já, sameiginlegt með þessu tvennu og ástæðan fyrir við drögum þetta fram að þarna að ræða árásir á réttindi transkvenna og transfólks í nafni kvenréttinda. Transkonur eru settar fram sem ógn við aðrar konur og allar konur eru smættaðar niður í líffræðileg einkenni, kynferði sín. Þarna verið í báðum tilfellum verið að ýta transkonum út úr opinberum rýmum og hefur neikvæð áhrif á þeirra möguleika til samfélagsþátttöku og einhverju ofbeldi gegn þeim, en líka ógn við allar konur af því að það er náttúrulega bara skelfilegt að við séum allar smættaðar niður í kynfærin okkar.
Já, og kannski sérstaklega ógn við konur sem að fylgja ekki þessum kannski hefðbundnu útlitsstöðlum, konur sem að eru eins og kallað var boots, sem að eru með stutt hár, hávöxnum konum, konum sem eru sterkbyggðar eða sterklegar. Allt í einu getur fólk farið að velta fyrir sér hvort að þær eigi nú örugglega heima inn í kvennarýmum og farið að krefjast þess að þær sína á sér deili og hvernig í ósköpunum eiga að gera það.
Og mér finnst í því samhengi dálítið áhugavert af því ég tala oft við bara fólk á ýmsum aldri, þar meðal börn, og þau eru alveg með það á hreinu að það er ekki í lagi að kíkja á einhverstaði fólks til þess að samræna hvort þau séu stelpur eða strákar, en samt eru stjórnmálafólk víða komið á þessa skrýtnu braut.
Akkurat, og ríki Bandaríkjanna til dæmis sem að vilja hafa þetta sem einhverju svona kynfæraskoðanir á börnum til þess að segja til það hvort þeir megi keppa í ákveðnum íþróttum. Þetta náttúrulega komið út fyrir allt. En við auðvitað sjáum þetta, ég ætla bara aðeins að bæta við hérna. Við sjáum þetta auðvitað í frásögnum transkvenna og bara transfólks almennt og margs hinsegin fólks bæði frá Bandaríkjunum og Bretlandi. Þetta hefur auðvitað þau áhrif að fólk dregur sig í hlé. Tekur síður þátt í samfélaginu og við töpum auðvitað öll á því vegna þá náttúrulega minna samtala milli hópa, verður aftur minni skilningur, þannig að þetta býr bara til svona vítahring. Og það sem líka kannski allt í lagi að taka fram hér að til dæmis eins og í Bretlandi, þar sem haldið mjög vel utan hatursglæpi, að þar höfum við séð hatursglæpi gegn transfólki aukast mjög mikið á undanförnum árum. En það sem áhugavert líka á sama tíma aukast hatursglæpir gegn öðru hinsegin fólki. Þannig að allt fólk sem einhvern veginn brýtur að svona kynjanormin. Ok, en hvað gerðist til það? Og hérna eru bara svona, það sem auðvitað gerðist var að það fór ákveðin tegund allavega í Bretlandi það ákveðin tegund feminisma sem að fer á flug. Í Bretlandi, eftir að Theresa May kynnti fyrir ætlanir breytingar á lögum kynskráningar transfólk, sem í raun og veru bara sambærilegar hugmyndir og það sem liggur að baki lögum kynrænt sjálfræði sem samþykkt voru hér 2019. Og það var sett í gang svona samráðsferli og það urðu til mjög margir hópar kvenna að mestu leyti sem að upplifðu þarna að það væri verið að brjóta á þeirra það sem þau kalla sex-based réttindi. Og undirliggjandi þessu eru þetta einhver ótti og trú á það að transkonur sérstaklega séu í raun og veru kallar. En ekki aðrar konur sem að verða líka fyrir til dæmis kynbundnu ofbeldi og öðru slíku. Og það var til bara ansi öflug hreyfing feminista í Bretlandi sem að útilokar transkonur. Þessi hópur stækkaði svo inn á Twitter og inn á Mumsnet sem held ég svona breska svarið við barnalandi muni eftir bland. Og þar voru svona forums sem að snerist feminisma og voru einhvern veginn undirlagðir af þessum hugmyndum og þessum ótta. Árið 2019 þá LGBT Alliance stofnað í Bretlandi og það hópur fólks sem að telur að réttindi transfólks gangi á réttindi samkynhneigðra og tvíkynhneigðra. Í raun og veru undir kannski sömu formerkjum. Í raun og veru að transfólk sé ekki það sem að það segist vera og og þetta bara...
Og taka einhvern veginn frá hinum.
Já, taki frá hinum og svo framvegis. Hugmyndafræði hinna svokölluðu gender critical feminista sem þessi hópur trúa því að kynin séu aðeins tvö og eru þar auðvitað sammála mjög mörgum og þrátt fyrir í raun og veru allan þann líffræðilega fjölbreytileika sem við vitum og þann bara fjölbreytileika sem við vitum sem snertir bæði kynhegðun, kyneinkenni og svo framvegis og kynvitund. Tala transkonur sem kalla, viðurkenna í raun og veru ekki tilvist transfólks eða öllu heldur taka þau ekki trúanleg þegar þau segja hver þau eru. Það mjög mikill fókus á líffræði, á kynlitninga. Það væri kannski áhugavert að fá að vita hversu mörg ykkar vitið að hafið farið í kynlitningapróf.
Nei, einmitt. Það almennt ekki gert nema að sé ykkur gríðarlega ástæða til þess að athuga það.
Já. Og telja sig fullum fetum vera að verja réttindi kvenna. Og tóku svo mörg upp þetta hugtak, kynjahugmyndafræði, sem þið sáu náttúrulega í tilskipun Trump, sem þetta gender ideology, frá í raun og veru anti-gender hreyfingunni sem ég gerir ráð fyrir að mörg hér þekki vegna þess að sú hreyfing mjög á móti til dæmis þungunarofi og réttindum kvenna yfir höfuð og að sjálfsögðu réttindum hinsegin fólks. En einhvern veginn út frá öðru sjónarhóli, ekki beinlínis út frá einhverjum svona ekki út frá einhverju feminískri hugsun eða hugsun réttindi kvenna, heldur bara, já, í raun og veru bara svona svolítið frekar öfga íhaldshugmyndir. Það sem að gender critical feminista gera líka að í raun og veru að beina spjótum sínum á intersex-konum. Sáum það mjög skýrt, sjáum það bara mjög skýrt til dæmis hvernig talað intersex-konur eins og Kastar sem Manja og fleiri sem hafa keppt í kvennaíþróttum og hafa þurft að margar gangast undir alls konar hormónumeðferð til þess að lækka testosterónmagn og annað út frá sinni bara í raun og veru bara sinni líffræði sko. Það bara konur sem hafa einhvern veginn aðeins öðruvísi líffræði heldur en aðrar konur.
Það nefnilega pínu áhugavert í þessum mikla fókus á líffræði og kynlitninga og allt þetta að þá einhvern veginn algjör svona hundsun á þeirri staðreynd að líffræðilegt kyn og líffræðileg kyneinkenni eru ekki bara binary.
Já, þetta ekki svona það sem væri kallað kategórisk breyta, heldur miklu frekar í svona bimodal distribution eða þú veist, svona dreifing sem eru svona, það eru tveir megin flokkar og svo bara fullt af fólki sem eitthvað staðar á rófunu.
Og þarna bara algjör höfnun á því sem náttúrulega...
Já, og þau vilja sé rými fyrir konur sem hafa XX-litninga. og eða líffræðilegar konur. Og það sem að mér finnst mjög áhugavert við þetta einhvern veginn að það virðist ekki vera mikil meðvitund það hvaða áhrif það getur haft á allar konur. Og bara smá svona yfirlit. We know what a woman is. Það voru svona mikil áhersla á það að skilgreina nákvæmlega hvað kona að sé hægt að gera það með einhverjum mjög einföldum hætti og þau að gera það adult human female. En svo, þú veist, leiðum maður einhvern veginn spyr einhverja fleiri spurninga, þú veist, það mjög erfitt að skilgreina hvað kona eða hvað kall eða hreinlega hvað stóll og það alltaf eitthvað svona, eitthvað svona aðeins
bara
núansar í því hvernig hlutir eru skilgreindir og hvernig þeir skiljast. Og þið sjáu líka vegna þess að það hafa verið, þú veist, það hafa verið lög til dæmis hatursorðræðu, kannski sambærileg á þeim sem eru hér, og þau upplifa að þetta sé, sem sagt, að þau sé að berjast fyrir réttindum kvenna og finnst það svona mjög óeðlilegt að vera svo tekin fyrir til dæmis af hatursglæpadeildum lögreglu fyrir að segja til dæmis að transkonur séu kallar eða eitthvað slíkt. Og sjáum við okkar allra bestu J.K. Rowling sem ég átti heimasíðu, Harry Potter heimasíðu sem ég uppfærði reglulega alveg bara frá því ég var 10 ára þangað til að ég var 15 og lærði eiginlega bara ensku á því að þýða viðtöl við hana J.K. Rowling og mikil vonbrigði einhvern veginn hvernig hennar skoðanir hafa þróast en allt góð með það. Hún talar til dæmis Nicola Sturgeon sem destroyer of women's rights vegna þess að hún studdi lögum kynrænt í Skotlandi. Og við sjáum líka það sem hefur breyst. Nú sagði ég ykkur áðan að fyrir 10 árum þá gáfu Bretar út ferðaviðvörun til ákveðinna ríkja Bandaríkjanna en núna hann Starmer bara sjúklega ánægður með þetta að fá nú bara alveg skýrt frá dómstólum. En svo bara spurningin, hvað líffræðileg kona?
Einmitt.
Og bara svona sambærileg yfirlitsmynd frá Bandaríkjunum. Hér til dæmis hún Riley Gaines sem hefur barist mikið fyrir því að transkonur fái ekki að keppa í kvennaíþróttum. Og við sjáum líka kannski það með miklu skýrari hætti afleiðingar í raun og veru þessarar hugsunar. Það verið að henda út transfólki úr hernum sem ég nú ekki mikill hernaðarsinni en herinn mikilvægur vettvangur sérstaklega fyrir fátækt fólk til þess að komast í menntun og annað slíkt. Fræg transkona hún komið með M í vegabréfið sitt allt í einu.
Já, en hún í rauninni einn af þeim heppnu sem fær þá allan á vegabréf þó þessi skrítið kynjamerki þar. Það líka dálítið bara pappíralaust fólk í Bandaríkjunum sem mér finnst dálítið áhugavert. Ég held að ef eitthvað annað ríki myndi bara banna stórum hluta þegna að fá skilríki að þá væri tekið öðruvísi á því.
Já. En þetta einhvern veginn, en í Bandaríkjunum þá kemur þetta pínlítið úr annar átt. Þetta eins og ég sagði áðan, þetta kannski ekki eins grándað í einhverju feminískri hugsun heldur miklu frekar þessari svona anti-gender hreyfingu sem við sjáum þetta líka hjá öfgaíhaldsflokkum víða í Evrópu. Ég veit ekki hvort þið sáu viðtalið við Neil Datta daginn í Kastljósi þar sem hann var að lýsa því hvernig í raun og veru hvernig sú hreyfing hefur haft áhrif á hið pólitíska landslagi í Evrópu og hvaðan sá peningur kemur einmitt frá öfgahópum Bandaríkjunum og frá Rússlandi það sem verið og það verið að grafa undan bæði réttindum kvenna og hinsegin fólks. Og hvaða hópur liggur beinast við og svona hvað auðveldast að ráðast á, það transfólk, hópur sem að fátt fólk skilur, sem að kannski fátt fólk þekkir persónulega eitthvað sem trans, mjög lítill hópur sem að fær alveg ótrúlega athygli.
Og svo náttúrulega eins og við erum búin að benda á að þá með því að ráðast svona á transfólk að þá bitnar það síðan á öllum konum. Þannig.
Já, akkurat, eins og þetta kannski alveg nýlegasta dæmi frá Boston þar sem að cis-lesbía rekin út af kvennaklóstið beðin að sína á sig píkuna. Bara, þú veist, þetta já. svona þetta. Og þetta blandast auðvitað alltaf inn í þetta, þú veist, þessa hugsun að hinsegin fólk eigi ekki að koma nálægt börnum á neinn hátt eða, þú veist, og þar undir þetta eru bara eldgamla staðalmyndir af, af hinsegin fólki sem barnaníðingum. Ok, og svo það þá bara í raun og veru afleiðingarnar og kannski bara byrjaði að segja að það rosalega mikill samhljómur á milli genderkritikal og anti-genderhreyfinga í málefnum transfólks. En feministar, til dæmis í Bretlandi, sem að líta á sig sem genderkritikal feminista, telja sig hafa verið að verja réttindi kvenna, en eru samt að móti fasisma yfir höfuð, þau eru í svolítinn vanda. Og ég sé það bara, sá það nýlega inn á vefsíðu hjá einum af þessum samtökum sem við nefndum hérna áðan, að þau eru að reyna sko að segja við fylgisfólk sitt, hei, sko, við vorum tilbúin til að útiloka transkonur, en allt hitt, þú veist, við viljum samt ekki hann Farats eða hvað hann heitir þarna, öfgaheildsleiðtogann í Bretlandi, og eru á móti fasisma, eru á móti því að réttindi kvenna séu skert og svo framvegis, en óvart einhvern veginn, ekki óvart, en þú veist, ég meina það gerist að það ákveðin hópur fólk sem að laðast að þessari nálgun að úthýsa transfólki, og það vill svo til að það fólk oft mjög gjarnan líka á móti réttindum kvenna og svo framvegis, þannig að það svona pínulítill vandi í gangi, og við sjáum það alveg að margir genderkritikal, prominent feministar eiga svo bara í frekar sterku sambandi við anti-genderhreyfinguna, við svona til dæmis öfgaíhaldi í Bandaríkjunum, eitthvað svona family values fólk. En það sem að gerðist var auðvitað, þau ýttu undir í retorík sem að öfgaíhaldi síðan nýtti sér bara. Og við sáum það auðvitað fyrir kosningarnar í Bandaríkjunum, að það voru bara heilu auglýsingaherferðirnar sem beindust gegn transfólki. Og þetta ansi góð taktík í raun og veru til að fá fólk til þess að óttast einhvern hóp sem að þú þekkir einhvern veginn ekki neitt og svo bara einhver mættur með lausnina.
Bara upplýsingaóeirð og villsinga.
En eins og við komum að áðan, þá verður þetta til þess að cis-konur, konur sem ekki trans, að þær verða í auknum mæli fyrir barðinu á transfóbíu. Og ég held að allar konur sem að skjöna þessi kynjanorm þekki það, að hafa annarkvort verið miskynjaðar eða fengi á sig einhverja niðrandi athugasemdir að séu svo kallalegar. Og það eru og þetta auðvitað eykst þegar fólk fer einhvern veginn, allir alltaf gerast einhverja svona salernislöggur. Þannig að, já. Og svo eru það áhrifin á Íslandi sem að, það eru nú margir sem að þekki það mjög vel sem sitja bara hér í salnum hreinlega. Það eru bara svona aðeins yfirlit frá samtökunum 22 og til dæmis, og barátta XX kvenna fyrir öryggi sem önnur síða svona sem að notar í raun og veru þessar sömu pælingar. Fólki sem er á bak við þessa hópa, það trúir því að það sé að berjast fyrir réttindum kvenna. Og eða maður, þú veist. En þið sjáu þú veist, að það er svolítið verið að smætta fólk eða konur niður í líffræðileg einkenni. Og það eru tengsl til dæmis á milli samtakanum 22 og LGB Alliance eru sýrstu samtök þeirra í raun og veru. Og hvað segirðu? 100%. Við erum að stofna LGB International. Núna? Ok. Ok. En allavega, og þannig að þetta hefur auðvitað haft áhrif hér, og við sjáum hérna líka, þetta er skjáskot af bloggi frá henni Helgu Dögg Sverrisdóttur sem er kennari fyrir norðan, og hún skrifar á hverjum einasta degi nánast blogg um réttindi kvenna og transfólk og hvernig henni finnst í raun og veru gengi á réttindi kvenna með tilvist transfólks eða þeirra réttindum. Já.
Þegar við vorum að taka saman svona, hvar höfum við séð þessa orðræðu á Íslandi, þá er þetta svona hóparnir, áttirnar sem að við blasa við okkur og það svolítið svona mismunandi, ef þið horfið bara á þennan lista, svolítið mismunandi hversu feminísk þeirra nálgun að öðru leyti, en þetta samt þeir hópar hér á landi sem hafa tekið upp þessa sömu orðræðu, dregið tilvist transfólks í efa eða jafnvel bara algjörlega tala gegn þeim.
Og oftast í nafni þá réttinda kvenna.
Já, eða þá homo lesbía.
Já, eða homo lesbía, eða í nafni réttinda barna. Og þetta eru, þú veist, og við setjum miðflokkinn og lýðræðisflokkinn sem hafa svona tekið undir þennan málflutninga einhverju leyti. Og svo erum við líka, en erum við með, mér finnst meira vera, sko, þetta er ekki alveg sama mynd og við sjáum í Bretlandi. Feministar hér hafa ekki einhvern veginn farið inn í þessa orðræðu á sama hátt og heldur sko, það fólk sem setur sig upp á móti til dæmis réttindum transfólks eða á móti hinseginfræðslu eða hvað nú það meira svona samkurl af anti-gender og gender-critical. Þetta svona, mér finnst þetta miklu meira í raun og veru svona öfgaíhald. Já, einmitt, öfgaíhald, öfgahægri stefnur. Ég sé eldri ekki sammála mér, við tökum það bara á eftir.
En við bara búum svo vel hér á landi að samstæða kvennahreyfingarinnar og hinseginhreyfingarinnar hefur bara verið sterk og sterk samstæða réttindi transfólks innan hinseginhreyfingarinnar í heild. Við erum ekki eins tilbúin að fleygja transsystkinum okkar undir rútuna, heldur meðvitið það að við erum sterkari þegar við stöndum öll saman. Og þetta bara munur öllu. Það allt öðruvísi að reyna að koma með þessa sömu orðræðu hingað á Íslandi þegar að kvennahreyfingin stendur með hinsegin fólki, þegar að annað hinsegin fólk stendur með transfólki og svo framvegis.
Það hefur rosa svona, mér finnst allavega meðvitundin það að réttindi kvenna og réttindi hinsegin fólks fari saman. Hún bara mjög sterk á Íslandi. Enda eigum við, ég meina hinseginhreyfingin hefði aldrei getað komið fram eins og hún kom fram á sínum tíma nema vegna þess að konur höfðu gengið á undan og krafist sinna réttinda.
Og þannig að
það gott, við séum sammála eitthvað.
En þannig að sko, já, þannig að við búum við bara mjög, og sko ég reglulega að spurð, það koma stundum hópar hingað og spurja okkur af hverju nær Ísland að vera svona framarlega í réttindum hinsegin fólks, af hverju staðan svona góð hér. Og það náttúrulega ýmislegt sem kemur til og ég ekki sagfræðingur þannig ég kannski endilega best í að greina það en ég held sko að þarna vinnur smæðin með okkur. Það auðveldara fyrir kvennahreyfinguna og hinseginhreyfinguna að standa þétt saman af því að þú veist við erum bara nálægt hvort öðru. Það ekki eins miklar vegalengdir á milli. En við erum líka bara óbúslega heppin og þakklát fyrir það hvað kvennahreyfingin hefur staðið þétt með okkur. En það full ástæða til að hafa varan á og taka þetta samtala yfirvegan hátt af því þessi orðræða að koma hingað. Hefur komið hingað, bæði gegnum þessa hópa sem við nefndum áðan, en líka bara í nútíma samfélagi, samfélagsmiðlar og frétta, umfjöllun og allt þetta. Og ég til dæmis bara því ég tala mikið við kennara, að margir þeir eru mjög hugsi yfir þeirri breytingu sem þið sjá í orðræðu nemenda sinna, sem eru náttúrulega bara inn á öllum þessum miðlum, TikTok og hér á þessu, og velta fyrir sig hvað sé þetta að gera, sko, að því líka þegar þessi orðræði komin inn í skólana og haldið upp af einhverjum úlingum þá mjög stutt í bara aðra fordóma og annað hatur og bara erfiða orku þannig að full ástæða til þess að halda fast á spjónum.
Svo eigum við þennan síðasta punkt við réttindi transfólks eru mjög rík á Íslandi. Lög um kynréttindi voru samþykkt 2019 og það fór ekki allt í skrúfuna. Þannig að við bara það fyrst núna og það rosalega margir líka maður svona áttar sig á því líka þegar þú varst að nefna þetta fólk að fá upplýsingar annar staðar frá og flytja inn kannski umræðu annar staðar frá sumt fólk sem segir einhvern veginn bara já ég vil ekki að til dæmis að transkonur fái að vera inn í kvennarýmum áttar sig ekki á því til dæmis að transkonur hafa haft aðgengi að kvennarýmum bara alveg til dæmis bara kvennaatkvörðun alveg frá upphafi að transkonur hafa haft lögfestan aðgang að kvennarýmum án þess að þurfa að fara í nokkrar aðgerðir eða neitt frá 2012. Þannig að þú veist, þetta orðið, það svo langur tími liðinn og fólk auðvitað áttar sig á því að þessi hræðsluorðræður hann á ekki við.
Því að við höfum deilt rýmum með þeim mjög lengi og það hefur bara gengið mjög vel.
Já, þannig að stóri punkturinn okkar hér að samstaða skipti máli, hefur skipt máli, mun áfram skipta máli.
Já.
Þá erum við búnar.
Þetta var þetta. Það var bara frábært yfirferð og veitir ekki af. Svo það sé sagt, Kvenréttindafélag Íslands félag sem útilokar ekki, sem einhverjaði og við vinnum að mannréttindum og kvenréttindum fyrir okkur öll. Þannig að Trans Ísland hefur verið í félagið í Kvenréttindafélagi núna í nokkur ár og það ofsalega góð samstarf milli samtaka 78 og Kvenréttindafélags Íslands. Við höfum staðið í ströngu okkar fulltrúar í European Women's Lobby til dæmis, þar sem það hefur borið á svona mismunandi áhrifum frá ýmsum löndum, sérstaklega Bretlandi og kannski austur-evrópskum löndum, þar sem einhvern veginn blandast allt saman og maður skilur ekki hvað að gerast hálfpartinn. Svona rökrétt hugsun vantar en það mjög slæmt og það hefur svolítið klofið þau samtök mikið en nú sést vonandi til betri vegar, þannig að við getum rætt þetta seinna. En ég ætla að stýra spurningum, við höfum eitthvað 10 mínútur eftir?
Já, við höfum náttúrulega meiri tíma.
Já, það náttúrulega það sem gerðist þegar við fengum núna að Sunna Alvera sem ætlaði að halda erindi fyrir Öryrkjabandalagið, hún til niðurveik, hún kemst ekki. Þannig að við þurfum eitthvað að brúa við byrja kannski með viðburðum vestnæra feminista haldum fyrr og svona skemmtum okkur spjallum frammi þannig við höfum kannski aðeins meiri tíma. En ég bara opna núna fyrir spurninga minni ykkur að vera stuttur, það ekki vera með að halda einhverja ræður, mjög langa auður, þannig við gefum þeim tíma til að svara. Auður, gjör svo vel.
Já, ég veit að það er kannski ósanngjarnt að vera að spyrja ykkur af þessu, en ég búin að vera að reyna að lesa til og ég svo erfitt með að sjá hvernig þetta verið að vernda konur. Hver eru rökréttu skrefin, hvernig hugsanagangurinn? Ég veit að við erum ekki sammála þessu, en mér langar svo til að skilja hvernig mitt öryggi eykst af því að transport útilokað. Oftast getur maður skilið hvaðan fólk þannig að ef þið hafið eins og svör, þá en þið meira sem það.
Það sem auðvitað undirliggjandi er bara svo trú að transkonur séu kallar og það sé verið að hleypa þá köllum inn í kvennarými og
það stofnar okkur í hættu.
Og það stofnar okkur í hættu vegna þess að yfirleitt eru gerendur í ofbeldismálum eða oft kallmenn.
Já, en við erum alltaf, það eru kallmenn hér, það eru kallmenn allstað, við erum allstaðar með kallmenn.
Þannig að það líka svona einmitt svolítið svona föst, eða kannski svona svolítið þröng sýn á kallmennsku og kallmenn yfir höfuð líka.
Þetta líka, þetta líka svona bara, það heyrir ekki saman við, ekki allir kallmenn, sem við heyrum alltaf þegar við tölum þetta.
Já.
Ég græði, það var ekki einn spurning hérna aftur í. Varstu með hendina uppi? Já, við erum kemur mikrofón, svo Sonja, svo bara eftir hana í staðinn.
Það víða samstöðu kvennahreyfingarinnar og samtakana 78. Ég fædd 1950. Ég var á Austurvelli hérna í upphaflegu samstöðufundinum stóra. Ég meina, en þið talið samstæða kvennahreyfingarinnar og samtökin 78.
Nei, og hinsegin hreyfingarinnar. Og hinsegin hreyfingarinnar?
Já, einmitt. Og hvað það að tala að sambandi? Mér langar að vita þessa kvennahreyfingu. Hver hún?
Hver hún?
Tatjana, vilt þú kannski svara því?
Já.
Já.
Nei, ekki bara Kvenréttindafélag Íslands, það til dæmis erum við í svona grasrótarhreyfing á Íslandi og þetta miklu stærri en Kvenréttindafélag Íslands. Við erum bara einn aðili af þessu. Til dæmis hafa 50 aðstandendur staðið af kvennaverkfalli 2023 og núna standa kvenna árinu. Þannig að það nú ætla ég bara að telja einhverja sem sé hér í salnum en það eru auðvitað fleiri og ég mun örugglega gleyma eitthvað. Það Kvenfélagasamband Íslands, það feminískt fjármál, það Rótin, hvað ég að gleyma hér? Stígamótaut og kvennaathvarfið, þannig að, já, UN Women, þannig að ég myndi halda að hún sé mjög breið og þetta hefur ekki einu sinni, þó við ræðum ýmislegt, við komum með ýmsum áttumur og með ýmsar áherslur og ekki alltaf eins, þetta hefur ekki einu sinni þurft að hafa til umræðu í okkar í okkar hópi. Ég held að samstæði sé það mikið. Ég vona... Já. Já.
Við vorum að því.
Við vorum að því. Þannig kvennahreyfing, já. Skriflega einhvers.
Við tökum það bara til og bara við notum þetta hugtak. Þetta bara mjög góð ábending.
Það góð ábending. Við bara gerum það. Sonja, gjör svo vel. Viltu gera hérna mikrofón?
Já.
Herri, takk kærlega fyrir erindið og kannski bara til að fylgja þessu eftir að því að við vorum að fjalla kvenna árið sem auðvitað lagði fram kröfur gagnvart stjórnvöldum sem að þeim gert að efna fyrir 24. október næstkomandi og að þetta yfir 50 samtök sem að taka sig saman kröfurnar og þar meðal annars fjallað transkonur og þær verði fyrir meira ofbeldi heldur en aðrir hópar. Þannig að ég held að mig alveg segja eins og að allir þeir sem standa kvennári, öll þessi samtök sem að þetta svona óformlegt reglívar hugtak, kvennahreyfing, það þessi samtök sem að vinna réttindum kvenna og við erum þar líka samtök launafólks. En mér langaði bara, kannski þetta of lögfræðileg spurning, ég hef ekki náð að grúska betur í þessum breska dómi. Ég fór aðeins að hugsa fyrst þessi á fréttirnar af því að við erum náttúrulega allar Evrópuþjóðirnar hluti af einhverjum alþjóðasamningum alls konar mannréttindi og þar að meðal jafnrétti kynjanna. Ég að velta fyrir mér, vitið eitthvað, þú veist, fyrir mér blasir þetta við bara að það þarf að breyta lögum í Bretlandi, þannig að mér finnst forsætisráðherra mjög lélegur í svörum og býð bara spennt eftir einhverju byltingu þar. En vitið þið eitthvað, þú veist, hefur þetta eitthvað verið speglað yfir á Ísland að einhverju leyti, eða þú veist, vitið þið eitthvað hvað, ef þetta sambærilegt mál?
Ekki svo vitið til, nei. Ég hef ekki ennþá segir eldur í stór. En
að því ég var að grúska þessi í þessum dómi að þá fólk líka bara innan Bretlands ekkert alveg viss hvað þetta nákvæmlega muni þýða, skiljiði. Hvaða vægi hefur núna einhvers konar plagg kynjaleiðréttingu og allt þetta, skiljiði. Þannig að þetta bara held ég ennþá dálítið óljóst, bæði þar og annars staðar. Svaraði ég spurningu.
Og mér finnst bara mjög líklegt að það verði látið á þetta reyna líka áfram fyrir breskum dómstólum og svo einnig fyrir alþjóðlegum dómstólum.
Já, ég heiti Inda Eldborg og ég kynvillingur og ég transkona og ég vil bara nota tækifærið til að þakka samtökunum 78 hversu vel þau hafa staðið með transfólki undanfarin ár og það hefur verið full þörf á því eftir að samtökin 22 hófu ofbeldisherferð sína gegn transfólki og hafa beinlínis reynt að brenna samtökin 78 upp í fordóma eldi í nokkur ár, safnast saman á opinberum svæðum til að níða niður transkonur af svo mikilli heift að það nær ekki nokkurri átt og ég legg til að þú og hyskið þitt skríðið burt úr samfélaginu og látið okkur í friði.
Bara að segja að við höfum ekki ráðist á neitt transfólk í opinbera rýminu eða neitt þannig og við höfum alltaf sagt það enda að okkur getur ekki verið meira sama hvað fullorðið fólk gerir við sitt líf og líkama. En ég ætla að þakka Þorbjörgu og þeim fyrir erindið. Það alveg rétt, við trúum því að transkonur séu karlar. Við teljum að lögin kynrænt sjálfræði voru dálítið fljótfærnislega því að þau í raun að vera að vinna gegn transfólki líka vegna þess að þegar varnaglarnir voru fjarlægðir og hver sem getur bara sjálf skilgreint sig inn í hvaða rými sem þá ertu náttúrulega að opna flóðgáttir af ýmsum vandamálum sem eru kannski ekki jafn sýnileg á Íslandi eins og þau eru annars staðar. Takk.
viljum við, já, bregðast eitthvað við, já. Já, ég kannski... Já, og við skulum passa líka hvernig við tölum saman við hvert annað. En ég, sko, já, þið segist ekki að vera ráðist að transfólki. Þið gerir samt mjög markvisst lítið úr transfólki. Og það mín skoðun og hún ansi vel rökstudd, myndi ég segja. En allavegana, þú veist, við, já, ég náttúrulega bara þér fyllilega ósammála því að lög kynrænt sjálfræði hafi á nokkurn hátt verið vanhugsuð. Þau voru bara mjög mikilvæg réttarbót og skiptir rosalega miklu máli. Fólk skráir sig ekki, breytir ekki kynskráningu sinni af einhverju, bara... Það hópur kvenna, margir hópar kvenna sem hafa til dæmis hægt í að mæta sundstað og þess að þá var að tala. En Eldur, það sko, þetta nú bara... kalla ég eftir þessum hópum kvenna hér á Íslandi sem eru stærri heldur en sá hópur sem þú ert með þér hér í dag. En allavegana, ég held að mörguleyti þá snúist þetta fyrst og fremst það að það vanti bara upp á skilning, að það vanti upp á samtal og hópa fólks á milli, vegna þess að þegar allt kemur til alls, þá erum við ju öll bara manneskjur, fólk sem vill fara í sund og bara í venjulegri búningsklefanótkun, það bara að fara í sund, algjörlega óháð því hvernig það lítur út.
Býttu Eldur, þú fékkst að tala, nú er Þorbjörg að svara.
Já, og ég vil ekki tala við fólk sem niðurlægir, fólk sem þykir vænt og ég vil ekki tala við fólk sem dreifir til dæmis breyttum myndum af mér. Það hefur bara víst gert. Víst. Breyttum myndum af þér? Já, víst. Ég bara áskot af þessu. Nei, þú bara manst á ekki eftir því. En það er bara staðreynd. Þannig að í raun og veru, þú veist, í raun og veru ykkar framgöngu þá hafið þið stimplað ykkur algjörlega út úr allri vitrænni umræðu. Til alveg frá byrjun.
Það var held í ein spurning. Varst þú efst uppi með stöttahári? Varst þú ekki með hendin uppi áðan? Nei, ok.
Nei, hún var búin, já.
Eru fremst? Já, steinum bara.
Mér langar að byrja að þakka ykkur kærlega fyrir erindið og sem framsögumaður málanna sem að lutu að kynrænu sjálfræði og öðrum tengdum málum á Alþingi, þá vil ég bara ítreka það hér við þennan sal að þar var ekki verið að flýta sig, þar var vel undirbyggt og þar var tekið á móti gestum og hlustað á ýmis konar sjónarmið og ég held að þetta nefna þetta sem mál þar sem að Alþingi sýndi hvernig það getur unnið vel að málum, ekki alltaf 100% sammála allt, en sameinast stóru myndina þegar kemur að því að bæta réttindi fólks. Það er mjög bara mikilvægt að hafa tækifæri til þess að segja það hér inn í þessa umræðu. En svo langar mig að spyrja ykkur, vegna þess að ég held að sumu leyti þá sé sókn besta vörnin og kannski ef að þið gætu sagt okkur hver eru næstu skref sem að ykkar mati eðlilegt fyrir íslenskt samfélag að taka og hvað ættum við sem að erum kannski ekki í eldlínunni í baráttu fyrir bara hreinlega tilvístarétti okkar, hvað getum við gert til þess að taka umræðuna áfram án þess að hún hniki neitt tilbaka. Af því að ég held að skipti máli að við höfum bara svolítið af amboðum í okkar verkfærakistum til þess að takast á við umræðu samtímans. Takk.
Það fyrsta sem kemur upp í hugan við þessa síðustu spurningaðina sko, nú ég ekki transkona, en mér þykir alltaf ofboðslega vænt það þegar að sískonur hafa sérstaklega orð á því að transkonur hafi aldrei orðið þeim glama. Það truflar mitt líf ekki neitt að transkonur deili með mér búningskleifum og klósettum og svoleiðis. Og mér finnst kannski að þetta sé bara orðræða sem við þurfum kannski að halda á lofti.
Algjörlega.
Taka utan transsystur okkar og þær finni og aðrir sjáu að við stöndum fyllilega með þeim.
Og það svolítið þannig, sérstaklega í umræðunni eins og hún hefur þróast og kannski að þróast að einhver leyti á Íslandi, þegar að það verða svona rosalega háværar skoðanir á móti réttindum fólks, þá skiptir rosalega miklu máli að við sem erum umburðarlynd, við sem stöndum fyrir ákveðin réttindi, fyrir ákveðið frelsi, að við látum í okkur heyra líka. Við verðum að passa okkur að vera ekki of hrædd við að taka þátt í umræðunni og tala við fólk og tala máli tala máli mannréttinda í raun og veru hvar sem við komum, af því að það oft þannig einhvern veginn að fólk það sér einhverja umræðu sem virðist svo ótrúlega öfgafull og erfitt að stíga inn í, að fólk sem sagt frekar reyna að stíga inn í hana, gera það bara á yfirvegaðan hátt og vegna þess að þessar raddir verða að heyrast áfram, annars eigum við það auðvitað á hættu og fleiri sannfærist af þeim málflutningi sem verið að halda á lofti.
Og inn í þetta kannski líka mikilvægt að segja að það líka mikilvægt að láta ekki draga okkur niður á plan ómálefnalegar umræðu, upphrópana og haturs og samtökin hafa haldið svokölluð gagnfræðinámskeið sem við mælum með fyrir alla, þar sem við æfum okkur í því hvernig við getum svarað á fallegan hátt og þannig að við höldum uppi kærleika og samstöðu.
Jeps. En já, næstu mál, þau náttúrulega, það eru ýmis mál sem hægt væri að ráðast í. Sum þeirra hafa að gera með útlendingalöggjöf sem kannski stendur ekki til að breyta núna á næstunni, svo maður viti til, en það þarf aukna vernd fyrir til dæmis hinsegin hælisleitendur og það eru fleiri hlutir. Það stjórnarskráin og það eru réttindi intersex fólks sem þarf að halda áfram með og annað slíkt.
Og svo sem fræðslustýra þá sé ég náttúrulega alltaf bara tækifærin í fræðslunni, ég held að hún sé mjög öflug og við þurfum bara að halda á hún þar.
Það. Og við þurfum líka að passa vegna þess að þessi svo orðræða sem miklu leyti maður upplifir sem innflutta til dæmis gagnvart transfólki yfir höfuð og það líka eitthvað svona pínu íhaldsemis undiralda það einhvern veginn líka til dæmis hvernig konur eiga að líta út, hvernig þær eiga að haga sér, hvað þær eiga að gera og þetta auðvitað snertir hinsegin hópinn líka vegna þess að þannig að það einhvern veginn með þessu, með aukinni transfóbíu þá kemur aukin hinsegin fóbía yfir höfuð, homar og lesbíur að lenda í aðkasti, eitthvað sem bara þekktist ekki fyrir 10 árum síðan valla. Já.
Ég held að við séum bara búnar í bili.
Má ég lega eina spurningu?
Já.
Takk fyrir og kannski ekki mikið spurning, mér langaði bara að þakka ykkur fyrir að koma hingað og halda á lofti þessum mikilvægu málum og mér finnst þetta mjög ógnvekjandi þróun sem eiga sér stað og mér finnst svona orðræðan sem hefur verið uppi það að það sé verið að vernda okkur konurnar eða börnin okkar eða hvernig sem það mér finnst hún eiginlega svolítið snúast upp í andhverfu sína þegar mann sér fólk fara með offorsinn í skóla með einhvern ákveðin boðskap. Ég sé það bara á mínu heimili, að börnin mín tala þetta og þeim finnst þetta ógnvekjandi. Þannig að þetta svona hvernig við förum að hlutunum eins og þið segið, hvernig við tölum saman og hvernig við bara ætlum að þróast áfram saman sem samfélag og það hvernig fólk upplifir sig sem einstakling, hvernig það hefur áhrif á annað fólk skil ég bara hreinlega ekki. Mér þykir þið alveg einstaklega bara öflugar og þið öll öflug í samtökunum 78 og þið vitið við bara styðjum við ykkur, takk fyrir ykkar framlag og við erum bara með ykkur í þessari baráttu, mér langaði bara að koma því að framfæri.
Takk fyrir það.
Takk kærlega fyrir þetta. Þið verðið eitthvað, það ekki á Q&A horninu og verðið bara áfram hér ef þið þurfum að spjalla. Já, svo ég ekki Kvennahreyfingin sem við klárlega þurfum kannski að skriflega skilgreina stendur fyrir réttindum allra og við erum bara stolt af því og munum halda áfram. þannig, en smá breyting á dagskráni, þetta bara svona hlutinu að gerast í loftinu. Sunna Elvira frá Öryrkjabandalaginu kemst ekki, því miður sendir góða kveðju, en við erum svo lánsamar að hér á landi eru í heimsókn vestnorrænir femínistar, þar á meðal færeyskir femínistar úr félaginu Fritt Vald, og þær hafa bara tekið að sér núna og nú leitni að halda erindi fyrirlestur þeirra starfsemi sem byrja þá klukkan 2 núna í þessum sal. Þannig það eru svona 10 mínútur til að fá sér kaffi og eitthvað gott með, og ef þið hafið áhuga á þessu, mæti hér klukkan 2. Takk kærlega fyrir.
lækkaði mér segja hann við byrjum sko, hann kemur svo mikið hisshljóð úr þeim.
komnar hér bara á 0-1 og vippuðu einn stykki kynningu stöðu feminísmu í Færeyjum. Þetta eru Björt og Sigrid og það ætla bara að kynna sig sjálfar. Það koma frá samtökum Frutvald. Og ég segi kannski setna aðeins frá vestnorræna samstarfi sem við erum í með þeim, en ég ætla bara að gefa þeim orðið og hlakka til að hlusta á þeirra kynningu. Gjörðu svo vel. Þeir tala á ensku.
Yeah? Okay. Yes, we will be speaking in English. And thank you for inviting us to Reykjavik. And up until now, we've had a very nice time. We went to Tatiana's yesterday for wine. Yes, my name is Björt. I'm a psychologist, and I'm a part of Fruttval. And, yeah.
My name is Sigrid, and I'm also part of Fruttval, and I'm a political scientist. I'm just finishing my master's now.
Mm-hmm. So, Auður asked if we could talk a little bit about what Fruttval is. So I don't know how long this is going to take, but we can have some questions after if we want. But I think we will just tell you a little bit about why we decided to establish Fruttval, and what Fruttval is, and what we've done, and you know. So I don't know if you know this, but the abortion law in the Faroe Islands is a restrictive law. It's a law based on prohibition, like so. I think it's a bit like your old law here in Iceland, that if you want to have an abortion, you have to fulfill some criteria. So you either have to be mentally or physically ill. You have to, the fetus has to be like, what you say, in danger, or you have to actually prove that you've been raped. It's not enough to say it, so you know that's quite not very easy. So we have this law today in 2025 that still prohibits or restricts women in the Faroe Islands and people with uteruses of gaining access to an abortion. So in 2017, we were some people in Copenhagen and in Tórshavn that decided that this is not going to work anymore. We have to do something about this, and what should we do? And we decided to, one good place to start was trying to change the narrative and trying to change the stigma. Because up until now, like the last 5-10 years, talking about abortions in the Faroe Islands was not done. You would never hear anyone say that they had had an abortion, and you would never, I don't know, you just wouldn't talk about it. And the politicians didn't talk about it. No one talked about it at all. It was a non-issue in politics. So what happened in 2017 is that we were watching a debate with some young politicians, where one of these young women was talking about maybe changing the abortion law. And she was met with such hatred and bad comments on Facebook that, yeah, we just decided to try and change this. I told Sigrid she has to stop me talking. But I can just continue with where we started. Mm-hmm. So, because in the Faroe Islands, it's a very small country. We're only 55,000 people, and maybe about 15 or 20. How many people live in Denmark? 10,000?
Like Faroese people?
Yeah.
In Copenhagen, around at least 10,000.
Yeah. So we have
a lot of them are young.
Yeah, we have a lot of Faroese people living abroad. So we decided, okay, we're not going to be able to change the law right away, of course. But we can change the narrative, we can try and change the stigma. So our first campaign, even before we had officially formed an organization was to get people to sign their names on online and just say, I want the abortion law changed. So, so within like hours, we had hundreds and hundreds of people sign their name, and within days, we had thousands of people sign their name. So this was something new in the Faroe Islands, that you would actually publicly say that you are against the Faroese abortion law. We were very moved and proud, and thought, okay, so we have something to build on here. So this was 2017. And in 2018, we formally organized as an organization called Fruitval, which works for autonomy of women and people with uteruses. So this slideshow was not created for presentation. So we're going to flip a little bit around.
So the slides were created for our stand out in the other room to just have on the table.
So from the beginning, we have been quite good at doing social media, and we've been doing posters. And this is one of the women in our organization who is also an artist. And I don't know if is that. Do you understand? Yeah. So this is one of our first posters. That, you know, our bodies are not up for political debate. Our bodies are not a political, battleground.
We Völlur.
Sigrid, now you can.
Talk so much. So it makes sense that Björst started because she was a co-founder and I was not. I joined a bit later in 22. And let's see what's going to be next here. Yeah. So this is also another artwork that we have. And these are some of the colors that we use, because we have some really good graphic designers, both in our committee and as our very close collaborators. Well, probably understand Min kroppur mitt val, which is one of our kind of statements that we use a lot. And so then there's a feminískur, which is to some extent similar to Kynjaþing. That is an annual event on the 8th of March in the Faroes, usually in Tórshavn. Mm-hmm. And actually, Björst, it makes sense that if you tell a bit about this, because you've been organizing it a bit more than I have.
I think it's maybe a bit the same here in Iceland. In the Faroe Islands, like, if you're an activist, you do like everything. You're just a part of all sorts of activism. But Feminískur started, I think, in 18 or 7. No, I don't remember. But it was started by like a grassroots feminist movement called Damodumi. And so Feminískur is kind of an umbrella thing, which hosts several events in the week of 8th of March. And Fruitval has been a part of that for, since 18. What more can I say about Feminískur? Yeah, so what is this? Oh, we're just like you. We don't have a year on it. So
yeah.
But what we can say also about this is some more artwork. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What we can say, we can talk about when we were 5 years old, which is a couple of years ago.
In 23. We had this 5-year birthday party.
Yes, and from the start, the interest in Fruitval has been huge, but not in the Faroe Islands. Danish journalists and English journalists and Icelandic journalists and Norwegian journalists, and everyone has contacted us about the amazing work we do, but it's been silent in the Faroe Islands. at least for quite many years. So we were slowly, well, not slowly, actually quite quickly changing things in the Faroe Islands between the people, because we could see in studies or in
surveys
that were made that like if there was a survey like 10, 15 years ago about the pros and who were for or against abortion, it would be like mostly against.
Yeah.
But after Fruitval came, we have flipped the public.
Yeah.
So there are more people now for abortion or free abortion. But we have always been quite shocked at how little interest there has been in the Faroe Islands. And we have publicly said this in the Faroe Islands, like why doesn't anyone contact us? Why don't you call us? Why don't Kringvarpa, which is the national TV, why don't you tell stories about us? And they always say, well, then if we talk to you, we have to talk to the other side as well.
Yeah.
So it's always been this very strange thing. And they show interest in us when there's a Danish documentary made about us, you know? So now you're interesting.
Yeah. So at this birthday party in 23, in July 23, we actually had also a team of Danish journalists follow some of our committee members, and that was kind of the last event of the documentary, where a team of journalists had followed 3-4 of our committee members for a few months. And that documentary came out in Denmark, but even then it didn't really it didn't get as much attention in the Faroes than it did in Denmark. Which has been interesting the whole time. So this is also part of the reason why we use social media so much, and which is why the graphics also are very important, and the artwork. And kind of having like a visual identity and having these statements that people recognize and stuff.
And no, I can't remember. Yeah. So this is just more. So this is one of our founding members as well, and she's a politician. Right now, she's the
she's the chair of the Justice Committee in the Parliament. And
So one of our campaigns has been to show politicians who are for free abortion, and she is one of them, of course. And she was in the documentary as well, and she's still in Fruitval committee. And we will talk more about him later. And Bjarne, he's also for free abortion, and Ingeluin, and Johan Dahl. So we just chose these people because they're from different parties. The whole of Tjóðveldi is for free abortion, and not the whole of Framsókn.
But now Framsókn actually just last week or 2 weeks ago, they changed their party line to say that abortion rights were going to be part of their politics.
Yeah. So what I was
going
to say before.
Yes. Yeah, of course. And we can just say about like why we have these pictures. It's like løgtingsvalevne fyrir retten å velge. You probably understand, but so politicians that were running for the last general elections, and in the run-up to the elections, we did this campaign where we contacted a lot of people who were running to Parliament and asked what their thoughts of the abortion law was, and we then collected all their pictures and some of the statements. And we got made a social media campaign out of it to just be sure that everyone who was in favor had the possibility to say it very publicly, very openly, also through us, and also to then hold them accountable when they then were elected to see that you actually said this before you were elected.
And what we mentioned before with the silence in the Faroese journalists, it's the same with the politicians. We often talk about a culture of silence in the Faroe Islands when it comes to abortion, because no one talks about it. Not the politicians, not the journalists, no one, really. You would be quite shocked. And Fruitval has slowly changed that and has done these campaigns to kind of break this silence. And it's worked in some ways, but we also have, I'm just going to scroll really quickly, we also have these politicians that voted against, and they are proud of it. They're not ashamed. They think, they're like, of course we vote against this. Because we talked to Steinunn, who wrote the book Roff. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Hey. And you were mentioning that some of the politicians here that were against or voted against it were actually quite ashamed. We do not experience that in the Faroe Islands. There's no shame in it at all. They're proud, and they're standing at the parliament and talking about murderers and child murderers, and they're proud of what they're saying. So we still have a bit of a way to go to kind of change this. So one of our campaigns, which Sigrid can talk about, is what we called abortion exile.
Abortion útleggt. Það sama á íslenskum, exile, útleggt. I know, but this is a campaign that we did last year for the Safe Abortion Day in September last year. And as you can see in the sides, it's with Amnesty International Føroyar and the Kvenréttindafélag Íslands, which is kind of Kvenréttindafélag in Tórshavn. And we have done a lot of campaigns with them, also because it makes it easier with more resources, with more people, with a bit more money when we are together with others, because, well, we're not funded. Provita is in the state budget.
Which is an organization against abortion.
Yeah, the organization against abortion. They are in the state budget, and it increased a few years ago to 300,000 Danish krona, and we don't get anything. So we are funded by just individual funds, and then we can do events with others. That's also why it's very convenient to do events with others that maybe have some funds, or we can apply to funds together. But yeah, so Abortion útleggt is this campaign that we started last year. It's something we've talked about before, but essentially it means that it is a problem that we are kind of exporting, that because women in the Faroes have always traveled abroad to get an abortion, and most of the time in Denmark, but also in Iceland, and maybe also in other countries. But we have collected a lot of stories throughout the years. It's something we've done from the beginning. Personal stories from testimonies from people that have gotten or taken abortions, and they have shared it anonymously with us, and we have shared on social media. And it's something that we have found. There's also been research on it, like some PhDs that have explored this. And a big topic is that either you have to navigate in the system in the Faroes, or you have to kind of find a way to get through the law, or to know how to lie, or to find someone who is willing to twist the law a bit. So there is, in general, a big, a large lawlessness in reality about this issue. But so Abortion útleggt focuses on this, on the exportation of the issue to the neighboring countries, where Faroese women or people have traveled to Denmark to get an abortion. But the problem is then that you cannot do it for free. Even though we are Danish citizens, we don't have the right to get an abortion in Denmark for free. So then you either have to pay a lot in a private clinic, or you need to change your address to Denmark If you know someone, you can change your address to their place for some time, and then that usually takes a few weeks to get that through. You get a CPR number in Denmark, and then you can have it. But then we have also, there are some like pro bono clinics that actually have reached out to us and said that they want to help. But it's also very limited what we can do, because in the Faroes it is criminalized to even help others get an abortion. So we are also kind of hesitant to like we are not like publicly out there helping anyone, because it's difficult.
And we're not healthcare providers. Like, we should also be a bit wary about what we tell other women to do. And sometimes we know which doctor they can turn to, but again, if someone is to trace that, and if this doctor is, I don't know, if someone finds out that this doctor is twisting the law, the doctor can also be criminalized under the law. This hasn't happened yet, but as you know, with the political climate as it is right now, we could be a little bit afraid that, okay, so if we don't get a more liberal law, will the next regering, parliament, maybe tighten the law, or maybe even be stricter about the different paragraphs in the law? So I think also the interesting thing about abortion exile is that it keeps women, poor women, it holds the poorer women back, because I can go to Denmark tomorrow to have an abortion. I have a good job. But another woman who has 3 children already and doesn't have the great psychology job that I have will not afford 15,000 kroner to just travel.
And then you need the flexibility to get time off work or from your studies and from other responsibilities to just travel, and so in addition to the money, that it's around 10,000 kroner to get an abortion.
And I think that in many other countries, people would be kind of embarrassed of like exporting healthcare like this. But again, the Faroese politicians really don't care. They don't mention this. They don't think this is something that we should work on in the Faroe Islands. And I'm saying those against abortion. Of course, there are some people who... But the stories, the social media that has made most impact is the personal stories, and is the videos of women like filming themselves saying, I have had an abortion. And we had that campaign, it started like 4 years ago, I think.
No,
3 or 4 years.
2 years ago.
Nei, ikke 3.
Yeah.
It
So
seems,
seems
so long ago.
No, it was 8th of March in 23, and then again in 8th of March 24.
And we have women from like 18 to 70 who film themselves and say, I've had an abortion, I've had an abortion. And this really impacts the public perception. So one good fun thing is that we won a prize last year. Because outside the Faroe Islands, people think we're great.
So this was the Plan International Denmark, Plan Børnefonden. They have a girls' prize every year, where we were nominated, and then we won. So that was really nice. So this was in October, November last year that we got this award. And I don't know if you can see, it's 20,000 Danish krona, which doesn't maybe sound like a lot, but to us it's actually really a lot because we don't really have anything. Or we have some funds, but not like 20,000 is really nice. And that then means that we have decided to give Catherine, who's holding the award. She was also the head of the campaign, like the actual face of the campaign. And
half Icelandic.
Yeah. And so we have decided to give also employ her part-time with this money, or just to have a bit of to give her a little bit of a salary for being kind of a coordinator of a lot of her work.
She has really she was the face of the campaign, and also in some of the documentaries and everything. She's really been in a lot of interviews.
Yeah, also in a lot of Danish media, because as we have said, Danish media is really interested, and we almost get spammed by Danish journalists. We really have to choose which ones we can talk to, because there's so many, and also so many students at universities who are writing their bachelor thesis about us and their master thesis, and they want to reach out and they want to know more. So it's very interesting, but we don't really have the resources to follow up on everyone. It just shows that it's such an imbalance in Danish and Faroese attention.
In the beginning, in 18 and 19, the framing was sometimes that kind of the Faroe Islands are such a backwards country, and there was always pictures of women in front of mountains and the sheep, and it's just very
and then there was this, Danish politicians were saying oh, how are we allowing this to happen in our backyard? Like the Faroe Islands are the backyard of Denmark.
But then again, we also have a lot of positive cooperation with Denmark and Danish politicians. We have also some Danish politicians who've said publicly, we support fritt valg, and we support the right for them to change the law. So I can see we already talked for half an hour, but we can. What happened then in 2023, in the autumn of 2023, was that all of a sudden this guy, Bjarni Kárason Petersen, who is the
Minister of Justice.
Minister of Justice, which is where our law is under, not health, decided to try and change the law. And we were like, what the hell? And a little bit of Faroese. This guy is married to... he's together with the girl on the car right there. Both very nice and cool people. So he decided to propose a change for a more liberal law, but still the law proposition was the same as the old Danish law from '74. Yes. So it was still 50 years old law, but it was a huge change from what we have now. So, and we were very excited, but also a bit kind of shocked that, is it happening already? Because we've only been here for 4, 5, 6 years. But then again, just go for it. And we were writing a book at the time about abortion in the Faroe Islands. I have a chapter there on mental health and abortion, and there's a chapter with a physician, a doctor, and a lawyer, and it's a really nice book. So the law came into Parliament in 24.
In May.
In May 24, and just a year ago, and I'm gonna cry now because it didn't pass. What happened was that it went 16 to 16, I think.
15-15.
15-15, I'm sorry. I always say 16-16. 15-15, which makes it, which...
Yeah, and then 3 abstained or cleared.
Yeah. And no, I'm not going to say it because we're streamed, so I'm not going to say something controversial.
Yeah.
But we posted this broken heart. We didn't know what else to do. And some days later, we were like, we're not going to forget you. Both the ones who voted for the change and also the ones who voted against. We're still brokenhearted, and to be honest, we still haven't found the energy again to continue the work, because it's just really hard. But then again, when we look at it, we're like, okay, so we started in 17, formally 18, and already we have come quite far. We've come to a place where there's this young man, new politician who is so brave And he's like, I'm gonna go for it, I'm gonna try and change the law. Okay, it didn't pass, but there was at least half of parliament that voted for a change, which we kind of think, okay, so when we were finished mourning, that we're like, okay, that's big, considering like 10 years ago, it would maybe be like 7 to 25 or something. Really, it would be so much worse.
And this also means that when it's going to come up again in Parliament, I'm saying when and not if.
Yes.
That we're not going to start from scratch. Then there is at least like there's all these hours of debates and arguments that have been said, and that then it can maybe be a bit more constructive next time, because I think the argumentation is also very new in this field, that politicians are not really used to it, and it can be it was very harsh, some of it. So that's also something that we're hoping that, I mean, it has changed. I think the public debate has changed as well. It's something we are seeing is that people are not as hostile in their argumentations anymore. A bit, we still get some like harsh comments and stuff, but it's not. Like it's becoming a bit easier to talk publicly about it.
What is quite interesting here is that Bjarne, who proposed the law, is from F.
Yeah.
And you can see 2 of his fellow members in parties voted against it. And that meant that party actually kind of broke down a little bit. And that is the same party that Sigrid told you about, has now decided to take a line that's saying, we are pro-abortion. So,
and one of them decided to leave immediately after that.
So, huh?
The man.
The man.
The woman is still not sure.
The woman we don't know about.
Yeah.
She's kept silent since.
Yeah.
Where do we go from now? Well, we're here, and and we've been trying to kind of think what the next step is. I think we will continue with our social media, continue with breaking down the stigma, and continue with the work we're doing. And we know that we know that the law is gonna change. We know that. But is it now? Because there's election next year, and we're quite sure that it's gonna be a Christian conservative regering next time. So we are 4 years where we know there's not gonna be a change. But maybe after that, we were hoping.
We cannot be sure.
I know. We were hoping that after a year ago, that Fritt Val will be no longer existing.
Yeah.
That we could maybe work on Gaza or something. That we could use our energy for something else. But we are here, still here.
Yeah.
So this is just some other campaigns we have. We have the posters outside. Let me see.
Yeah, you can buy these posters.
Yes.
After.
Abort är vanlig. Yeah. Yeah. So that's just a picture of one of our committees. I don't know if this is the.
You're not on this picture, so this is not the newest
I was in the Posterarbeit.
Yeah. But this is a Christmas party some years ago, I think.
And we have a man.
Yeah.
Like people always are like, oh, is this just women's rights, blah, blah, blah. And there's one guy who thinks it's a, no, kidding.
Yeah. Our committee is still we are still half and half in Copenhagen and the Faroes, so it's a lot of online coordination. Yeah, but I think we're gonna wrap up now.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sigrid and Björn, and give it up for them. They prepared it like 5 minutes ago, this presentation, but we have been working together and talking together, and so it's amazing what they're doing. And it's amazing that we don't hear enough about it here in Iceland, which is like next door neighbor. And we were asked earlier in the session to define women's movement. I think Femifagnaður is like great word, so I'd like to steal it from you. Are there? Yeah. So Björt will be at the session now at 3 o'clock.
I think Sigrid as well.
Okay, both of them. Great.
Sorry.
Okay. Anyways, so we will hear more about the West Nordic cooperation. But are there any questions now for them? We don't have the microphone, but I will repeat your question. Elva, yeah.
Thank you both so much. I'm so inspired by everything that you're doing, and I could actually see some familiar faces on the photo, so that was very exciting. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you have statements from women who have had abortion. How do you get women to share these stories on social media when you have this ban on abortions? And also because I do the social media for Young Women Iceland and our platforms, and I just love everything that you have up there. So I just wanted to ask, what is the reason behind the retro?
Yeah.
And just, I think you're amazing. So thank you so much for everything that you have told us. And I really, really hope that you will be able to move on to other things sooner than later.
Yeah, me too.
So the stories, like, do you mean how we get people to share stories when it's illegal? Like when it's... Yeah. So I guess we have... on our website, we have a form that you can fill. So it's... so you don't have to write an email directly to us where we can see your email, or a message on Instagram where we see your name.
It's anonymous, very anonymous.
It's an anonymous, and it's always open where you can send your story. So that has been one, and then it gets to our email, and the other is then people can also now recently it's become more normal that people also are more open to us about it on Instagram or Messenger or email.
But it is illegal in that way that you have to fulfill this criteria.
Yeah.
But we still, one of our friends, she's doing a postdoc and she did a PhD on rhetoric on abortion. And I think she only found one woman who's been criminally charged with getting an abortion. It's like 100 years ago or something.
Yeah, 150 years
ago. But of course, you can always be afraid that it would happen. But and with the retro thing, I think we have some like Bitla, one of our graphic designers. She's just very cool.
Yeah.
And I think she's quite inspired by the 70s feminist movement, and her mother is a feminist as well, and an artist. So we just give her free range.
Yeah. And I think it's also, at least this is how I see it. It's also to say that it didn't start with us.
Yeah.
It started back in the 70s or even before. Like, it's difficult to track exactly when it started, but the Women's Association in Tórshavn was founded in 1972, I think, and that was an issue in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then Fruitval started in 2017 to only focus on this. So it's also based on that.
We've had some campaigns as well with the saying publicly that you had an abortion. The first one was actually I think it was in 18 or 19 at the Femifagnauer, where me and a friend of mine publicly sat down in front of like 100 people and said, we've actually had an abortion. And it was a very safe space. And then we've had this done a couple of times after. And it seems to work really well, this form of communication, putting a face on people.
Hello, my name is Christine, and thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to know, what role does religion play in this opposition you are facing in the Faroe Islands? I know there are many churches in the Faroe Islands. So are you debating with the church, or is it more the politicians, or how is it?
Actually, we have some priests that are for abortion, and I don't know if they publicly said that.
They
haven't, no.
Not yet.
No, not yet. But you actually talked about this yesterday. You can maybe talk about the religion.
Yeah. So it plays a role, of course. The Faroes are the most religious Nordic country, and the church plays a big role in politics, and there is kind of this notion that life is holy or sacred. But then we mentioned one of our committee members who did their PhD on the rhetoric, and they also have done research in anti-abortion rhetoric from the 70s and 80s, 90s, and there is this notion that religion has played a part, but it's not the full story. So it's also about the Faroes being very isolated and us being a very small nation that they're scared that that we are so few, and their life has been very precarious with men drowning in the ocean with fishing ships, and just life being harsh in general, that this has also played a part in the anti-abortion rhetoric. But of course, religion is still plays a big role, and also you can hear it in the parliament that also when the law was debated, that Mother Teresa was mentioned, and the Bible, and all these, we as a society, we are a Christian society, and this goes against our values as a society. And so it's but it's something that we've talked about, that it should be possible to be a Christian and also be in favor of liberalizing the abortion law. Because there are many Christians who are also, there's not one way to be a Christian, or to be religious. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I'm going to close this session now, because you will be speaking in 10 minutes again. But there is, plenty of time to chat with them and connect, and we would really like to strengthen the partnership and collaboration between Iceland and Faroes. So feel free to talk to Björn and Sigrid and give them a big round of applause now. So break, and then we are back here at the panel discussion at 3 o'clock. Okay. Yes, it was so nice. Yeah. Great. Why is it hard? Did you say it? And I didn't. núna. The next panel session that we will have now today is organized by the partnership of West Nordic Feminists that Women's Rights Association is part of. It's called Control Over Women's Bodies is the Basis of Patriarchy. So it will be a panel discussion, but before the panel, I will introduce the panelists, but before the panel discussion starts, we will have a short introduction into the topic by Irma Erlingsdóttir, who is a professor at the University of Iceland and director of Gender Studies program. I'm probably not saying it completely correctly. Grow guests. So Irma, please, I will give you the floor.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Irma Erlingsdóttir, as has been said, professor and director of Grow Guest at the University of Iceland, a program we run under the auspices of UNESCO, and that focuses on gender equality, social justice, and sustainable development. Today, I would like to share insights into the work of Michelle Perrault, if I pronounce her name in Icelandic, a pioneering French historian whose contributions to women's history continue to resonate, especially in our current moment of backlash against feminism and gender theory. Born in 1928, Michelle Perrault has spent her career uncovering the overlooked and often invisible lives of women in history. She astutely noted that the historienne, the female historian, often sees what the historien does not, highlighting how women historians bring different perspectives to the historical record. Now, in her late 90s, she remains remarkably active and outspoken, continuing to engage with contemporary debates and developments, always drawing vital links between the past and the present. Her work is especially relevant when discussing how control over women's bodies has served as a cornerstone of patriarchal systems. At a time when we are witnessing renewed efforts of rollback reproductive rights, discredit gender theory, and restrict bodily autonomy, Perrault's work offers both a warning and a guide. She shows how the regulation of women's bodies through sexuality, reproduction, labor, and public space has historically been central to patriarchal control. These controls weren't incidental. They were embedded in law, in religion, medicine, and culture. Her theory is rooted in the understanding that this domination has deep institutional and historical roots. Perrault's theory is also grounded in the understanding that these mechanisms of control are not static. They evolve and re-emerge in new forms. Her analysis of reproductive control, for example, points to how women's bodies were long seen as national resources to produce citizens, workers, and soldiers. In many historical contexts, women's reproductive choices were dictated by state policy, whether through bans or contraception or forced sterilization, depending on what served national or ideological goals. This remains painfully relevant today. The global rollback of abortion rights, including in the US and parts of Europe, is not just a legal issue, it's historical, continuation of efforts to deny women full agency over their bodies. The battles we thought were won are being reopened. Beyond reproduction, Perot examined how societies have policed female sexuality, constructing women as either virtuous or deviant, with few options in between. She traced how institutions such as the church, medicine, and even early psychology help and transform myths about female desire, morality, and purity. These ideas still echo today in everything from sex education policies to media portrayals of women, and persists in modern forms of slut-shaming, victim blaming, and rigid gender expectations. Perot's work helps us to recognize the current debates around modesty, consent, or sexual freedom, and not merely cultural disagreements, but part of a much longer history of gendered surveillance and control. Perot also explored how capitalism and modernity have commodified women's bodies. With industrialization, women entered the labor force in ways that were both liberating and exploitative. As capitalism evolved, women's appearances became commercialized through fashion, advertising, and beauty standards. These industries still profit by enforcing narrow ideals and often intersect with race, class, and ableism. The pressure to conform, perform, and be visible in particular ways continue to shape women's lives. But perhaps one of the most powerful aspects of Perot's work is her attention to resistance. And this might be the reason why I was asked to speak here today about Michel Perot's work. Women have always pushed back through activism, through work, and simply by surviving systems designed to suppress them. Yet today, we are seeing a strong backlash to that resistance. Anti-feminist movements are growing, not just politically, but culturally, through cultural movements that aim to reassert traditional gender roles and discredit the very idea of gender as a social construct. This backlash often targets gender theory itself, casting it as a dangerous ideology, a threat to the established order. We see this in attacks on LGBTQ+ rights, in efforts to ban discussions of gender in schools, and in laws restricting access to reproductive health care. But Perot reminds us that this is not new. Patriarchy has always reacted strongly when challenged. Perot's work reminds us that these reactions are not new, as I said before. They are part of a long history of patriarchy attempts to control, restrict, and oppress women. Her theory offers a framework for understanding this resistance and for empowering us to continue the fight for gender justice. Feminist movements, as Perot notes, are not just about addressing individual wrongs, they are about dismantling the systems of power that have kept women, and by extension, gender non-conforming people, subjugated for centuries. Michel Perot's work serves as a vital reminder of the deep historical roots of these struggles. Feminism is not a monolithic or modern invention. It is a long-standing movement that has evolved over centuries. So to conclude, Michel Perot offers us a historical lens through which we can better understand today's backlash. Her work gives us both context and clarity, showing that the struggles we face now are not new, but part of a long continuum. If we are to defend the rights and freedom gained over the past century, we must remember how fragile and hard-won they are, and how deeply the systems that oppose them are entrenched. Thank you.
Tack Irma, thank you so much. great introduction into the panel. Now that will be led or moderated by Helene Fosberg, a friend from Denmark, Kynjaþing, right? General Manager of Danish Women's Association. Björt Lind from Faroe Island. Linda Dröfn Gunnarsdóttir, Kvennaathvarf. And Julia Kristín Isaksen, that is coming at a very short notice here, and we are very thankful for her. She's Greenlandic, and as I said, this is the event organized by the West Nordic Cooperation, and Helene and Björt are part of it, together with Women's Rights Association, Icelandic Women's Rights Association. So I give you the floor. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Helene Forsberg, as just mentioned, and I represent the Danish Women's Council. Is this working? Yeah. And just before you all get terrified, I've just been speaking to so many wonderful people here in Iceland, so therefore I have no voice, but that is actually a good thing, because it means that it's going to be the panel who is going to talk most. But just for a start, I just want to thank you very much for that very good introduction to the conversation we are going to have. And as Tatjana said, it is linked to the work we do in the West Nordic collaboration, where we are trying to look into, so how is actually the status for women's rights and equality in the West Nordic region, and how can we support and strengthen each other by collaborating. So what we are going to talk about is, of course, your perspectives on what have just been said. How is the status actually in Greenland, in Iceland, and in Faroe Islands? So I want to start over with the host. Now we are here in Iceland, so can you just introduce yourself briefly and just give us a short status? How does the women autonomy, how does it feel these days in Iceland?
Yes, thank you. My name is Linda Dröfn Gunnarsdóttir. I am the general manager of the Icelandic Women's Shelter. So, in few words, the status in Iceland. This is, of course, always complicated. And I did hear some gasps before when our Faroean friends were introducing the status in their country. And she's giving her fisherman friends. So nice. This is very Icelandic.
I love those. I haven't had them for years.
So, but it is also just a good reminder that the battle is never won, and we are not as far from it here as we might think sometimes. So, as Irma just so vividly described, that these steps forwards, 3 steps forwards to 2 steps back, that we are continually taking, and that this patriarchy is always in the background. Of course, we have much better laws when it comes to abortion rights, but at the same time, we are still battling gender-based violence, which is probably the clearest form of patriarchy in Iceland today, that these numbers are not going down at all. And it is always evolving around dominance and power. And we are still facing a system that doesn't catch the women or the ones that are tolerating this. So this is a big issue here in Iceland, and we are facing this typical Nordic paradox here in Iceland, that we are always talking about that the equality is already here, so it's even more difficult sometimes to take these steps and trying to be loud about this. But this is still an ongoing big problem in Iceland, and it is affecting the whole system, and it is systematic to keep down or hold down women's power in the working force or wherever in Iceland. Of course, we do have these tops in Iceland now, like the ministers, head of church, president are female. but at the same time, we are still facing these problems. It is not changing. So this is something that we have to be very serious about, and we are seeing the Nordic countries having these backlashes, and they are looking towards Iceland as there are more positive things happening here. At the same time, we cannot forget that the fight continues. We are never there. So this is basically the status in Iceland. Please add to it, because they are all Icelanders and they know a lot more about it than me in some places. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And there's definitely a lot of that we can recognize in the Danish context as well, where we also experience a great lot of gender-based violence, although we had 2 female prime ministers as well. It didn't change this situation. But over to you, Faroe Islands, we just heard very much about your good work on abortion rights, but maybe you can widen it a little and tell us a little about the status for women's right to their own body on a broader level.
Yeah, well, it's quite similar as to what you talked about as well. We can see a huge increase in women seeking help for gender-based violence in the Faroe Islands. And we still have a long way to go with the wage gap, and the abortion rights, of course, as I told you about, and something that is also quite, that we're struggling a bit with as well in the Faroe Islands is rights for LGBT people. So I think it's, and as I said before, the Faroe Islands are a modern country with modern progressive people, but with laws that are kind of a bit behind the rest of the world, or especially not the rest of the world, but the West Nordic countries. So the women are not fully autonomous humans. We don't have full control of our bodies because we don't have abortion rights or free abortion, and we're still as other countries experiencing huge levels or high levels of gender-based violence and discrimination and sexism and you know, the same, I think, that is happening everywhere else we can see in the Faroe Islands. And maybe because the Faroe Islands are so small in some ways that it becomes very personal, because you always know someone, or it's closer to, it becomes very anecdotal, it becomes very personal. So it's not just numbers, maybe as it is in other countries, bigger countries. It's very personal in the Faroe Islands, because we know someone who hasn't been able to have an abortion. We know someone who's been to the shelter. We know these women. So that's also a difference, I think, in the Faroe Islands. Yeah.
Thank you. And Julia, I know you stepped in the very last minute, and I know it's always hard to speak on behalf of a whole country. So that being said, I'm going to ask you anyway, how do you experience the situation in Greenland in relation to these questions we are talking about, women's rights to decide for their own body, women's autonomy? Do you have any perspectives on that?
Yeah, thanks for calling me. And then as you said, I just stepped in, so in very short notice. But it's really interesting what you're doing here, and we also like in Faroe Island, we are so few and even more isolated than maybe from them. And then so I'm from South. Maybe it's good to let you know I'm from South. So I lived in Nuuk for 1.5 years recently. So I moved back here. I have 2 daughters, and I think it's like in Faroe Islands, quite isolated places and a few. So any incident it occurs to news media or social media, we usually know somebody. So it's I know some people who have been in not the good situations, and then and some part of it is like we are always looking up to Iceland regarding to those center, neutral and everything, and so I think from my perspective, it's going there is a progress, and when there are some things that occur on the surface, then they're really bad, like spiralsign. Yeah, they're heavy stuff, but in general, I think there's always some progress, and always, we are so few, so it really depends on who are saying stuff. It really depends who are making them obvious on the surface and talking about them. So we are quite sensitive who is doing and who is saying what. So I'm really interested in this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for giving these good perspectives on such a short notice. I'm just gonna go into some of the numbers we see, because as you know, we do actually have a lot of data as well on how the condition is here in the north, which is really pointing towards us having to understand this Nordic paradox a little better. And you were talking about it as well, because Eurostat has just made a new inquiry on all across Europe, and what it shows is that we actually, in the Nordic countries, have a great amount of women who are experiencing gender-based violence. It can be sexual violence, physical violence, or psychological violence. For Denmark, the numbers is 47.5 of all women who experience this during a lifetime. So what are the numbers actually here in Iceland?
We had a big survey from the university that showed us that I think it was 40% of all women experience gender-based violence at some time in their life. So yeah, I think the numbers are pretty much the same. What is like really concerning to us that we have a whole new generation of women and of men that are using violence, that are getting so much more education about this and the different types of violence and how they appear. Also, we see this in the women that are coming to us, that they are seeking help sooner. The society is pushing them to seek help more than before, and they are naming more different types of violence as domestic violence, for example, that they have bigger understanding or deeper understanding on how this can spread into every aspect of your life, like financial violence or sexual violence, and stalking, of course, is all types of domestic violence. But we don't see the numbers go down at all, and this is worrying, because this is telling us that we are not approaching it the right way. It cannot be approached from one side, like more education is not enough. It has to be approached from every single aspect at the same time, because it's running that deep, and we cannot close our eyes to the fact that that is this systematic patriarchy that is in the background all the time. So it is this importance of what message is our politics sending to young men and to families. Like if we have sentences of femicide, if a woman is killed inside the home, the sentence is lower than if she is killed out on the street. So what kind of message are we sending by saying that or doing that? We are not securing, or we are not making women secure from their perpetrators. We are not using all the means or all the tools that we could possibly be using. Up until now, just talking about domestic violence has been like a personal issue, and it seems to be like that still, even though it's changing a lot. I don't think any of this is a coincidence, because this is all sending the message of some kind of control, some kind of dominance over women power. So it is not a coincidence that it takes so long and so many rounds to really battle this. And we are always going back in some way. And now we are adding on to social media, music, podcasts here in Iceland, for at least, is a big thing, where the discourse is going back again. And we are allowing people to talk again the way we haven't been talking about women in many, many years, or women in power, women in positions are stepping down because of this, for example, we can see. So, yeah, it's a complicated thing, and it's multi-layered, and it's not fixed in one with one cross, like, yes, let's increase education in school about different types of violence. This is not going to solve it one, like, it's. I think the first step is always, what kind of message are we sending through policies, through how we treat these cases. And we are actually taking steps forward here in Iceland, but it has been a long, long run, and we are not there at all. So we are not securing women. They have to leave their houses to escape violence. They cannot stay there. We are not taking the perpetrator out of the situation. And all of this is affecting also women in power or women at the labor market. This is all connected. So when we had the women's strike 2 years ago, it has mostly always been focused on women in the labor market and salaries. But we did put a lot bigger focus on gender-based violence this time. And a lot of people were surprised by this. Like, what does this has to do with the women's strike? And we really had to explain how gender-based violence affects women in the labor market as well. Like, if you are suppressed in your home, are you going to go and ask for a raise or a bigger position at the labor market? And there's a lot of financial violence. If you are leaving the home, you lose work. Women that are victims of domestic violence are showing much higher numbers in all kinds of physical illnesses. PTSD is a high number among these women. So this is all connected, and it's all part of keeping women down systematically.
Thank you. And Julia, I want to continue with you, because you were talking about before that you also in Greenlandic society have like experienced bad things, or like, but you were not really like putting more words on it. So I wanted to ask, all these things being said from an Icelandic perspective, is that something that you recognize into Greenlandic society as well, and the view on women connected to women's possibilities in society?
Yeah, definitely. And also, being said that we are really isolated places, sometimes it goes so slowly just to, and difficult for women who are being in those domestic violence, and just to, in maybe small places where everybody knows everybody, and you just can't really go to a shelter, maybe next place, and anyway, if you go, everybody will know. That's really common. I would I would also say that it's also depends on where you are in Greenland. You know, East Greenlanders are even more isolated than us in west part and west side, and then in North Greenland also. And that's I think that's also, it's a little bit different than on other Nordic places and West Nordic places, that what they have to deal with. And then I can't, it's heavy stuff I heard, and then also abortions and domestic violence and those kind of rights, what they, every month when they have when they get a salary, or every, when it increases, and the news, and it's common, unfortunately quite common, that the women are put in a difficult positions and difficult situations, which are not easily, even if they have the courage to step up and say something, but then maybe it will take much longer time to do something about it. So that's some of the, challenges they have in Greenland as women.
Thank you. And over to you, how do you experience the relation between some of these things happening to women and then the possibilities of actually going into politics, like taking the very high exposed roles in society and really creating the change we want to see? How do you see the relation?
In the Faroe Islands? Well, being a female politician, I think everywhere is difficult. But what we've seen in the Faroe Islands lately is that we have some young female politicians who have spoken up about maybe like sexism at work. And as I said before, this culture of silence, it just still exists. So even though they speak up about it, it was like a mini Me Too movement in the parliament. Everyone just shamed them, and they were like, well, you should just, that's how it is being a politician. You should, so instead of changing something in the workplace, they were shamed for talking about it. So we see these struggles of being a woman and putting your, being in power. But I was thinking about something when you were talking in forms of violence, that what we've seen in the Faroe Islands the last years is quite a lot of digital violence. We've seen women who have been, whose pictures have been manipulated online and who have been shared. There's this, it's called Golden Maps in the Faroe Islands. It has existed since I was a teenager, and at that time it was a diskette, do you know this? And then it was it used to be like a physical thing where men put pictures and videos of women on and shared it between them. And then it was a USB, and now it is an online digital map, which we still see that men are uploading pictures of their ex-girlfriends and manipulating pictures of ex-girlfriends or just women they hate onto these platforms or these files and sharing them. And just a couple of years ago, two of these women stood in public and said, "We will not be shamed anymore." And this had not happened, in 20 years. So, as you said, Julia, there is progress also. So, of course, there's a lot of fighting still, but we see these especially young women, much younger than I am, these female politicians who dare speak up, these young women who dare speak up against this digital violence. But there's no law protecting them. Or there is a law, but it's very difficult to prosecute anyone for digital violence.
Can I, regarding those, for 1.5 years or something, they make a new rule about it in Greenland, which is called samtykkelov, where regarding the social media, those which were too common also, they got a new rule about it. So that's good, and they start to talk about it. As I told you, it really depends also who is putting them up on the surface. So it's been well, I'm hopeful, but I'm not, but there are a lot of things to do to improve, but that's.
But I'm really happy to hear that you are still hopeful after all, because I think we really still need hope, but also still need a lot of work from all of us. So before we are rounding off this good conversation, I just want to ask you, what are we going to do these days, seeing the rise of the anti-gender movement, being in this political situation, and still in our societies dealing with these forms of patriarchy? What are the best advice you can give the younger generation in the feminist struggle going forward?
I think Irma said it pretty well. Like put it well forward that this is the light at the end of the tunnel, that women never give up and we keep going, and we have this persistence and this faith in what we are doing. And even working at a women's shelter, that many people think it's like a horrible job, seeing misery and horrible things every day. Of course, there are very difficult stories, and with the digital violence, the violence keeps on going inside of the shelter, and also politicians trying to blame everything else than patriarchy, like it's we have racism, or these are foreign men, or whatever. There's always some ways that they are trying to sail around this, or using different groups against each other, but we always have this fight, and we are always taking steps forward, and that is the main thing. Is just like never start relaxing, because the fight is never over, and we do things that really are pushing people together to the same goal. And like I was saying, yes, working at the women's shelter, there are horrible things that you see, but mainly, most of the time, we are just seeing wonderful things. We are seeing strength. We are seeing women that are rising up and taking the most difficult steps that you can take in your life out of a close partner relationship with your children. They are sticking together. They are encouraging each other. And we just see them open up like flowers, both women and children, at the shelter. So just working there, you get hope every day. So my advice is just never give up and never fall asleep, in this, like never get too comfortable and start looking at other countries like, oh my God, everything is so great here, and you are just really not doing your thing, because we are never safe. So always keep going forward.
Thank you so much. And Julia, you mentioned also you have 2 daughters. So what is your advice to them and to all the rest of the young women in Greenlandic society?
Yeah, I personally give my, I'm really fortunate with my daughters. They are really outstanding. But, I always, that they have to, be aware of the situation around them. And because whatever society you go into, there's always some different approach to, gender rights and everything, and female rights and everything. So I keep them updated in the best way I can. And then also with my Greenlandic friends and female friends, and just be updated and know your rights, and then just always don't be afraid to show your your ideas and aspirations. Yeah, it's always good to. And why going to I wasn't planning Monday to be in this, so it's quite, it's always something new, and it's always hope. That's also.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to end with you because now we had many.
I have the solution.
But we had many conversations on how Frit Valg is getting the motivation again, because we need that. So let me know, what is your advice for the young people who are going to continue this?
I could start with saying, I think when we talk about education, I think sometimes, I want to phrase this correctly, I think we always think that we should educate people to, don't misunderstand me, to like be like us. And I think we should all educate ourselves to know what is happening right now, if you know what I mean. So instead of kind of telling young men, you should all be feminists, I think we should be more curious to see what is happening with young men, with young people today, and why is this happening? Why are they... why do they want to share naked pictures of their ex-girlfriends? Like, what is this? What's happening? Where is it coming from? And and it's of course women also do toxic things. But I think we should be careful of not alienating a part of the culture. A part of our society when we talk about education and when we talk about feminism, because we all need to be educated on what is going on in society. And as far as Frit Valg and what we are gonna do, I think we should also just keep pushing on and knowing that there is a light at the end, and there will be a change, and at the end, like, justice is, or rättvisa, justice? No. Yeah. Justice. Yeah. Or like like we will win, if you know what I mean. Like because equality and that is a fair society. So, and we all know that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that hopeful perspective in the end. And thank you all so much for bearing with me and my voice as well. I don't know if we have time for some questions. Yeah, so if there is any question, then it's now.
Thank you so much. Maybe not so much of a question, but a small comment. My name is Steinund, and I'm a former politician and the former chair of the West Nordic Council. And I have to say, I am so happy that West Nordic women are grouping together. And I really want to encourage you to take contact with the West Nordic Council, because I think that the cooperation parliamentarians in Iceland, the Faroe Islands and Greenland are having, they are so often on the male-dominated sides of society, and they can do with so much more feminism and a feminist push. And I think it would be to connect it with what Irma was talking about, how societies or governments want to make use of women's reproductive rights. I think that there is a great opportunity for the West Nordics to group together and make an issue about this, because we have been societies until very recently with very high levels or with many children. Why is it changing? There is something about the condition of young people, and I know that young people in the West Nordic countries, they like to meet up and talk together. So I just wanted to give you this advice, that I think that this is a very good opportunity for women's rights and feminist perspective to squeeze into the West Nordic politics. Yes. So thank you very much.
And thank you very much. And I can assure you that we are already working on that and had a wonderful meeting yesterday with the West Nordic Council, some of the representatives. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, a lot of questions. Christine? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Well, thank you very much. You know, we here in Iceland are celebrating 50 years since the United Nations Women's Years. Women's Year. And, you know, we have seen changes in Iceland. We have seen a lot of success in politics, on the labor market. You see women everywhere. But when it comes to violence against women, well, we don't know if the situation is worse, but at least it's not better, I think I can say. And I have thought a lot about this. Why is this? And you are talking about education. I think we need something much more than education. And if we ask I think, you know, these are the deep structures of society. This is how women are perceived and so on. So I've been thinking, are we in the women's movement, and I have been active for a very long time, are we far too polite? You know, do we really need to be more aggressive? Where have we seen results, and when? With actions. Actions. You know, whether it was the Red Stocking movement in Iceland, you know, the Women's List, the Icelandic Feminist Society, you know, actions in the streets. So I really think that we should think and discuss this. We need to do much more. We need to find out how can we change these deep structures. Mm-hmm. The state, you know, the patriarchal state within.
Yes. Does she get an amen? Or?
Thank you, Christine, and I totally agree. And I think maybe the women movement in Iceland really needs to incorporate this more, even more than they have begun to, but like even more, because it is difficult for us that are working with the victims to be very political, because our aim is always to keep our arms open to every woman, unrelated to class or political views. So of course we are always spokeswomen for this change, but we really need the women movement to come with this political force into this discussion. So it's thank you for this point, Christine.
Helene, do we have time for 2 questions? Or?
Yeah, no.
Yes, let's take some more questions.
Já, ég miklu rólegri núna heldur. I'm more chilled now than I was earlier on. I just want to thank you for your inspiring discussion. However, I feel that there is one thing missing. That's gender-based violence against queer people. So I know quite a bit about it in Iceland, but in Greenland and on the Faroe Islands, if you could inform me a bit.
Yeah, and thank you so much for bringing that on. I don't know if do you know anything about the situation on this in Greenland, Julia?
I think from my perspective, I lived there for so long, so I think it's quite, yeah. But I would say that there are a lot to do still, but I don't think there is a lot of discrimination regarding the queer people or LGBT. and the society, and then they are well taken in, and they can marry. They have the laws. They can get married, gay or be trans, or but there are much more that. I never had this feeling where there have been any, total big issue. But I'm sure they had battles. They had their battles, and they still have battles to take. But I think they're not, they're not outsiders like that anymore today in 2025.
Do you want to elaborate in a Faroese context?
Yeah, in the Faroe Islands, we see that queer people are very behind in being treated equal. That's obvious for everyone. I have worked with, I've had like support groups for trans youths, and they have had all, like they were 15, and they had all experienced hate crimes when they were outside. Some had been spit on and shoved, and so this is something queer people experience all the time in the Faroe Islands. We have some laws that are supposed to protect queer people, but every time a hate crime or a crime against happens, it's always debated. It's always like, I don't think this wasn't really a hate crime, was it? It's like it's always up for debate what it really was, when we all know that it was based on their gender and their identity. So I think we still have a long way to go in the Faroe Islands. As I said before, I don't know if you know, like in Tórshavn, the city, it's a progressive city, lots of young people, and I think queer people feel safer there than outside of Tórshavn. But still, it's not easy being queer. It really isn't. Right.
And maybe I can just add that from a Danish perspective, the situation is really bad on gender-based violence against queer people, especially against trans people. And what we are experiencing is as well that you are unable to protect people with the law. Although we have actually a law that is supposed to, this paragraph 243, but unfortunately it doesn't in practice protect people, because very often it is not taken seriously by the police, and very often things are there's being asked questions on whether or not this is just a performance, or if it's really a gender identity, or if it's just all these conversations we have had.
Exactly the same.
And it is just devastating, because what we can see from the inquiries into the mental health of the people in Denmark, we can see that queer people are really low on life quality and also on mental health. So it is a great issue that we need to have a much better grasp of in the future.
Yeah, takk fyrir. Yeah, one last question. So I know you were talking about we don't need maybe just more educational, awareness, like teach the kids young in school to be able to tackle these problems. But I'm a teacher, so I have to speak from that. And I teach gender studies in secondary school. And this is a subject that has been taught for quite some time here in Iceland. I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not taught in your respective countries on that level. It's not an option, I think. Here it is always been quite popular within the school that I teach at, and in other schools they have it as a mandatory class. But now we're seeing a different kind of backlash to this, along with every single backlash we have talked about. But now we have people in parliament, or men in parliament, young men, coming forward and saying that we are only pushing an agenda and that we should ban gender studies in school for secondary school. Is this something that you recognize from your countries, or is it so far off because they don't even teach it at that level?
I really want to answer this because I have an organization that does sexual education for young people. So I believe in education. And in the Faroe Islands, it's not mandatory. It's mandatory in like public schools to have some form of sexual education. I know. Gender studies is a foreign like word in the Faroe Islands. So we've just agreed on sexual education. That's how far, that's where we are right now. I'm sorry, camera, but this is true if someone from the Faroe Islands is watching me.
And it's the same in Denmark.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same. You cannot even say that gender studies. The minister, he threw all these recommendations on gender studies in the waste basket.
Yeah. So we've just agreed upon right now, like this year, that there should be mandatory sexual education in public schools. This year. They've made Námsatlan. I don't know. Yeah, Námsatlan. So that's where we are right now. So talking about gender, talking about anything else other than a condom and chlamydia, I'm sorry. We're not there yet. I think we will be. And I think maybe that's why you are probably better at talking about this than we are in the Faroe Islands, because your kids and young people, maybe they don't agree, but they get the information. Do you know what I mean? So what was your question? I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to say that, just to be clear, that I am not against gender education, of course, but I really think we need to increase it a lot, and we need to go into like at more ages. We need to go in earlier about communication and communication skills, and that was like my meaning, that this one-layered approach that we are doing now, and it's more like taking a box, and that's always dangerous. So then we are just closing our eyes to all the other options that we need to be performing towards them.
But what I also think, I'm sorry, is that sometimes the like right wing are very provoked because we think that we have we know what's best. Do you know what I mean? And it is provocative that someone is saying, well, this is the way you're supposed to live your life. This is the best way. And that's what I mean about being curious at how other people or how the other side thinks and why they think like this. And as you mentioned before, this deep-rooted like stream underneath, like the deep roots in patriarchy, like to really tackle those, I think, is what's important, yeah.
I just want to give you the opportunity to answer as well, if you know how it is in Greenland on sexual education and gender education.
Yeah, I was fortunate to get those educations, and I think it's more liberal and more, open there, fortunately. And then, yeah, I don't have any. I never experienced any problem regarding those. And then talking about sexual, preferences and everything. And then, my friends who are bi or gay, maybe they're my circle. It's like that. I don't know. We are quite open, and then it just. Yeah, we have those educations, and then they are talked about. Maybe, of course, they need to be improved a lot. And regarding the, where you should, like I said, that the law just put it for samtykkelån, acceptance.
The law on consent.
Yeah, consent. Yeah, they just put it, and then it's more viral, and but it's good. The good thing with the small population, it goes viral quite quickly, and then
Okay. Thank you very much. I can feel that we need to close the conversation, but thank you so much for attending it, and let's continue it just without my voice. Yeah.
Julia and Linda Dröpp, since I have you all here, this is nice. What we are going to do now, the last part on our agenda, is we are going to show you film we made for Kvenár og ekki bara svís á íslensku núna. Ekki bara. Þannig að ég ætla að kynna til leiks Ingu Auðbjörgu sem nýráðin verkefnastýra Kvennaárs. Ég bað hann að sprella aðeins, hún ætlar ekkert að sprella. Hún ætlar að segja okkur bara nokkur orð hennar starf og hvað við ætlum að gera á þessu ári og leiða okkur svo yfir í pop-quiz. Gjör svo vel. Já, heyrðu, fyrirgeðu. Það fatamarkaður, skiptimarkaður, ókeypis þarna frammi og fólk sem kom með fötin vill ekki fara með fötin heim. Þannig að endilega tekið það sem ykkur finnst flott og tekið þau þetta með frjálsum framlögum en þetta sem sagt ókeypis og að gera hreinsa slár þar. Inga, gjör svo vel.
Góðan daginn öll, ég kom með fulla hjólakörfu af kjólum þannig að endilega frelsi mig frá því að þurfa að hjóla með það heim. Ég heiti Inga Auðbjörg Kristjánsdóttir Straumland og ég verkefnastýri fyrir Kvennaár í ár. Ég gerir ráð fyrir að þið séu öll mjög meðvituð það að það sé Kvennaár og þetta einn af viðburðunum sem kannski tengjast inn í Kvennaár. Við ætlum að gera ýmislegt fleira skemmtilegt í ár. Þegar við erum að spurja fólk, konur og kvár og stelpur og stálp, hvað þeim langar að gera á Kvennaári, hvað efst á baugi, þá eru svörin yfirleitt þetta. Okkur vantar að koma saman og rappa og plotta og gleðjast og vera í, ég ætla að kalla þetta öruggt umhverfi, það ekki vonandi orðið það núna. Og við ætlum að reyna að svara því með svona gáfulegum og fræðandi og fallegum viðburðum eins og þessu Kynjaþingi, en líka viðburðum þar sem við fáum bara að vera við. Og næsti kannski stóri póll 19. júní, þar sem við ætlum að koma saman öll í Hljómskálagarðinum og hlusta á aðalega og aðeins konur og kvár flytja tónlist. Svona bínari tónlistaviðburðir hafa náttúrulega viðgengist í áraraðir. Þorrablót Selfoss til dæmis alltaf bara með karla. Þannig að við erum svona að sýna aðra versjón af því og það verður rosalega gaman. En hún Hrafnhildur Gunnarsdóttir ásamt hópi af fólki búin að gera myndband sem svona varpar ljósi á helstu vörður í sögu kynjabaráttu á Íslandi og við ætlum bara að fá að svona sitja og kannski svolítið þakka fyrir allar konurnar og kvárinn sem hafa rutt brautina í gegnum tíðina og svo náttúrulega skellum við okkur í pub-quiz. Það ekki svoleiðis? Já, ég ýtti á bil, en það gerðist ekki neitt. Já, þetta bara bakgrunnur einmitt, já, ég kann á tölvur. Picture in picture, ég kann ekki tölvur. Allavega ekki á Mac. Stækka ég þetta við mig. Við verðum bara vandræðaleg, en þið fylgist með þessu. Já, hvernig væri það?
Já, en þetta ekki að minnka?
Þetta sko picture in picture.
Akkurat.
Þetta merkilegt.
Já.
Já, búin að því. Þetta bara eitthvað svona sem að, en við bara svona hardkóðum þetta svolítið svona. Það ekki, ekkert mál, ekkert vístaklikki. hverju við getum náð þegar við stöndum saman. En núna ætlum við ekki að standa saman. Nú erum við að keppa hvort við annað í barsvari. Og ég ætla bara að bjóða ykkur að ganga hérna fram þar sem að barsvarið fer fram. Takk fyrir okkur.